Hey everybody, it's Mike over at Taxes and Bricks. Welcome to episode 66. Is it episode 66? I think it's episode 66. Anyway, today on episode 66, we're doing the mailbag. Woo! Exciting. And forgive me for being dressed like it's the winter time. They're doing HVAC, like spring maintenance, and they have the air, like testing it to see it's cold, like cranked down so it's like 12 degrees in the office. Brr. Anyway, hopefully it gets back to like a normal temperature sometime soon because I'm freezing to put on like a down parka. Anyway, today's mailbag, we're going to talk actually two questions about real estate. Kind of interesting situations that came up this week and one last week. And so I'm going to run through them. One of them has to do with sort of gifting versus loaning a down payment. And the other one has to do with offering up a rental property to a nonprofit organization, and we'll get into it. Two very interesting situations that I came across this week. So first, because this is tax related, I'm going to go ahead and throw up a disclaimer, and we'll be right back. This video is rated TAX and contains occasional ramblings, mild attempts at humor, self-deprecation, irreverence, brief numerical examples, and adult tax and accounting advice that may not be suitable for all taxpayers. Viewer discretion is advised. Before following any of the advice in this or any of our videos, you should always consult with a tax professional. Thank you. All right, so the first question came in actually like a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, and I've sort of been working through the details with the client. But let's say Mary and John own a house in Washington, D.C. They've owned it for, 10, 15 years. It's always just been their primary residence, no rental activity. They've always just lived in it, no problems with their kids and everything. And they've decided that because of the way the real estate market's going and for other various reasons, they'd like to sell the house and move to something different. So, most people, I mean, not everybody, but most people, they just put their house on the market and they get it sold. And then in the interim, they find another place to live. And, the sale of their house coincides with the purchase of the new house. And so they're able to kind of use the proceeds from the sale of their old house to, put the down payment on the new house. But their situation's a little different. They're not going to be able to actually sell their present home that they're living in for a little while. Okay. For a variety of reasons. Mainly, I think it's due to school districts for their kids and another series of reasons timing-wise. So they're going to actually have to buy this other house they want to move into first and then spend a couple of months and get their other house squared away and sold. So they're going to still qualify for the capital gains exclusion, and they know that, and that was one of the questions, and so that's okay because the house qualified as a primary residence for 24 months out of the 60 months prior to sale. We've already talked about that in a prior video as to why they won't have to pay capital gains tax, but the issue for them is cash flow. They're not going to have the down payment or all of the down payment to place on this new house. So John's parents have basically asked them if it's, or actually John's parents have offered them to basically loan them the down payment, okay? And it's going to be a short-term loan, so it's just going to be a couple of months. And the question was whether or not this could be treated as a gift and then repaid, so no interest needed to be paid to the parents, because the parents don't want interest on the money they're loaning to Mary and John, and Mary and John don't want to pay any interest on it, and so that's totally understandable. And unfortunately, the answer to them was no. It can't be treated as an interest-free loan because they're going to probably have this loan outstanding for well over a month, maybe 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. So really what the IRS basically says here is even if this is a short-term loan, there needs to be a written promissory note. There needs to be terms to the loan. It needs to be official, and there needs to be sort of an applicable interest rate, and the IRS publishes, and it changes month to month and quarter to quarter and year to year. They publish a list of the sort of applicable interest rates that need to be charged on loans between family members. Intra-family mortgages is basically what they're called. I caution my clients in these cases, don't try and say it's a gift if it's really a loan. A gift is something you don't pay back. A gift is a gift. I'm giving it to you. It's yours. Don't give it back to me. A loan is something different. And they're very different tax-wise and reporting-wise. And the courts routinely have ruled gifts to be loans if they are being paid back. I mean, that's a big tenet of all this, and that's what they've said is going to happen. So I told them to structure this like a loan. I told them that there are companies out there that help people structure loans. But honestly, too, if you're working with a mortgage lender, they might just have some template documents you can use. So unfortunately for them, this would need to be a loan. There would need to be a promissory note. There would need to be payments made on this, and part of those payments would need to be interest. And John's parents need to claim that interest as income. And since it is technically a mortgage on a house, there's a potential for Mary and John to be able to write off some of that interest. Now, it's short term. I mean, it's not really going to be that much interest to be paid here. And I think they understand that, and everybody wants to follow the rules, and that's good. But something else to kind of think about in all of this, later on, if John's parents want to just give John and Mary back the interest as an actual gift in a separate transaction, so long as they're not giving John and Mary more than what the gift limits are throughout the course of the year for all gifts that they've been giving, that's okay. But it's a totally separate relationship to this gifted or to this loan of a down payment. That would just be something, end of the year, John's parents come in, they said, well, we collected $5,000 worth of interest from you. We didn't really want it. We're going to claim it on our tax returns because we understand we have to. But here's the $5,000 back. So John's parents are welcome to do that. But again, it's nothing to do with this actual transaction that's going on, and it's not going to offset any of the situations here for them. So, but yeah, there were some moving parts too to this that needed to get worked out before we could kind of come to a conclusion in all of this, because actually the amount of money that John and Mary are going to be borrowing from John's parents is pretty substantial. The last part of this, I talked to a mortgage professional that I know, really, really good about this stuff. And the mortgage professional cautioned me about something, and this isn't tax related. And so I would say at this point, for this kind of information, talking to a lender might actually be a good idea. What he had basically told me, this lender, was that John and Mary should not represent the money they're getting from John's parents as a gift during the real estate transaction for this new house. So they shouldn't tell the lender that's going to actually be loaning them the first primary mortgage on this new house they're buying that the money John's parents gave them as a gift. They need to make sure they disclose that it's a loan. I didn't really quite fully understand why. I mean, I think it has to do with the approval process, and it also has to do, according to the lender contact that I know, with sort of a quote-unquote debt-to-income ratio, and that having this debt outstanding to John's parents might impact or influence the bank's decision as to whether or not to give John and Mary the actual loan in the first place, the first mortgage, because there's an understanding that it's going to be paid back. But I think there's a good explanation in all of this, in the sense that John and Mary are about a couple months from now to sell this other piece of real estate where they have a ton of equity. They're going to end up with a bunch of cash, and they will be able to pay back John's parents, and it's not going to create some kind of an undue burden for them, essentially. So that's more of less tax advice than anything else, just something that I came across through my research here. You want to share and disclose information with your lender that you might have another outstanding debt on the property. Okay. The next question came in, Bob and Joan. They own a house in the DC area, and it has a pretty substantial sized rental unit. It's a separate rental unit from the house. They've always lived in this house as their primary residence, and ever since day one, they had a tenant in there renting from them on a monthly basis. Well, the tenant's lease is up here at the end of June, and the tenant's choosing not to extend their lease and they're moving out. And Bob and Joan have been kind of taken a bit by the plight of some of the Ukrainian refugees and other refugees from other countries. And Bob and Joan have decided that they're in a position where they don't need the $2,500 a month that's coming in from this rental property. And instead, they've linked up with the Refugee Rights Organization that helps refugees find low cost or free housing in the area, a wonderful service. Bob and Joan have volunteered their rental property for this nonprofit organization. A nonprofit organization is going to vet and find a tenant. The tenant's going to move in, but Bob and Joan aren't going to collect any money. So the nonprofit organization isn't going to pay the $2,500 to Bob and Joan. They're just going to basically, Bob and Joan, provide a free place to live for a refugee or refugee's family. Okay, no money's going to exchange hands. Bob and Joan wanted to know if the lost rent that they could collect, the $2,500 a month, that they were collecting from tenants in the past and they won't be collecting now, if that $2,500 per month over the course of a year that they rent this thing out or however long could be deducted on their tax returns. And the answer to that question is no. Okay. So say no to a lot of these mailbag questions, but it's good because I actually said to them that while this isn't a charitable contribution, the $2,500 isn't charity, you can't then create sort of a loss of a rental property that isn't really being rented or in service for business. Some of the direct operations costs of the rental property could be construed as a charitable contribution. So the electricity is separately metered on this unit. Okay, it's actually a separate building from their home. And so they could, in theory, take the electric bill as a charitable or contribution. Repairs and maintenance they might have as a result of the nonprofit organization's usage of this property could be construed as a direct charitable contribution. In terms of a portion of their interest in real estate taxes, I mean, I kind of told them that was a bit iffy. I mean, I would just assume, say at this point, they're probably just going to end up taking their real estate taxes and their mortgage interest on a Schedule A anyway, as an itemized deduction. The good news for them is they don't really have a lot of overhead, and the place is furnished already, and they've already deducted the furnishings and the towels and things like that. So, I mean, they don't really have a lot going on. But if they were to have purchased a lot of stuff to furnish it for this nonprofit organization, assuming that this furniture and the towels and things that they would buy become then the property of the nonprofit organization, they donate it to the nonprofit organization at the end, they could take that as a tax deduction too. One of the alternatives that I had suggested to them as well, and if they don't like this idea because it's not going to create some kind of massive tax break for them, was I had suggested to them that they move in another tenant like they've had in the past. And if they really don't need the $2,500 a month, then when they collect the $2,500 a month from their tenant, instead of using that to offset the costs of running a rental property, they could feel free to donate the actual $2,500 a month to the Refugee Rights Organization. And that would be a complete tax deduction for them, the full $2,500 per month. They do that a couple of times, 5, 10, 15, 20,000 bucks, whatever, however much money they donate. And they liked that idea too, and it's good. And it's nice because Bob and Joan seem to be very philanthropic, and it's always nice to see in this day and age. So, that is it for today's mailbag. 2 very interesting questions. Haven't really addressed those before or seen them come across my desk. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Weekend's coming, so have a great weekend. We did 5 full videos this week. I haven't done that in a long time, and this was a lot of fun. Ooh, I think the air just checked off. Ooh, I can take my vest off and... Oh, yay, this is going to be great. Anyway, don't forget to like, subscribe, share content with your friends, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.